Hey folks, this is a two-part video. The first part is going to discuss how to think about things and how to live in a world where it's becoming increasingly more extreme in many aspects. The second part of this video is about the things that MBA, my very expensive University of Chicago Booth MBA, did not teach me, and the things that I have worked for me to a great financial benefit since I graduated. Just a little bit about me. I attended the University of Chicago Booth MBA about 4 years ago. In 2016 is when I started. I finished in 2018, and throughout that process, I had a difficult time finding work in the U.S. During this MBA, because it's part-time, and after the MBA. So I decided to start my own company here in Malaysia. I decided to quit U.S. because I didn't really feel like there was much room for wiggle, or much room to expand and explore in the U.S. for me personally at that time. And it turned out to be a good decision to move in Malaysia. Right now I am operating two very successful businesses, and pretty much my income is now in the 1% tile. So, you know, the hated 1%, but I'm actually approaching that point, so I'm very happy about it, and I want to share some of these things that helped me get to where I am today since 2016. Okay, so the first thing I want to share is how to think about things, and this is very important, especially today, where there seems to be so much angst, frustration, even hate going around the world. Everyone's blaming everyone else on the problem, and it seems like there's such extreme difference in view. And when I was younger, I was in the same situation. I just don't understand why some people feel so extremely about a certain way and so forth. And I wouldn't say I was angry at people, but I was just like disenchanted about things. Well, I didn't really change until I moved to China at the age of 31. So when I moved to China, I was confronted with this whole new world. This whole new world I didn't understand. And my first instinct was to dislike it and to ridicule it, because I'll give you an example, okay? When I moved to Shanghai, I quickly learned that in Shanghai, in the middle class families and middle class and above, the parents tend to set their kids up for life very early on, meaning that once you get married, the parents will chip in, buy an apartment, buy a car for the family, and even take care of their children if the children take care of the grandchildren if the children have children. From an American upbringing, this is ridiculous, and because it's kind of like you're babying a grown-up, right? But what I learned later on is that there's really good reason for that, because if the parent can take care of all this stuff for a young couple or young person that's starting out in life, it's giving him a lot more leeway, alleviate a lot of pressure that he feels early on in life. That may cause a divorce, that may cause, stress, mental disease, and so forth. So that's just one of many examples I learned in China. So how that affected me was that I started to see things differently and from a different perspective. And what I realized is all the things that initially I ridiculed when I first moved back to China in at 31, I started to appreciate. I started at least to understand where they're coming from. And then I started thinking more deeply about it. It's like, why is it that there's so many things that, a person grew up in the West with a Western mindset, ridicule other culture, and then And then later on you realize, okay, there's a reason behind everything that these other people who do the way they do it the way they do it. And what I realize is perspective and experience. Is that the typical Western stance is like, oh, if you don't understand my point of view or you disagree, that's because you're an idiot, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't haven't read enough. Actually, that's not true. That's incredibly wrong in my personal experience. Is that it's not that the other side don't know enough or didn't read enough or are dumb. It's that maybe I don't know enough, right? I cannot or could not walk in other man's shoes. I cannot see his reality. I cannot see his difficulty and his opportunity and all those things that make his life unique to mine. So this changed me greatly, and made me a lot more humble, a lot more accepting, and a lot more, I wouldn't say wise, but it's just a lot more at peace with things. And today I look back in the U.S. and I look back in the U.S. with a very strange foreigner's eyes, almost like I see all the things that goes on, but it's no longer personal. It seems to be far, far away. It's like none of my business anymore, even though I am American. And the things I see is that it's exactly that. Is that there's this huge, huge gap between the opinions. Right? Everyone's fighting so hard for their opinion. They're fighting. And what they could do is maybe stop fighting and start listening to what the other side is. Because no one holds the absolute truth. No one's also always right. We are only seeing a fraction of life. So if you don't understand somebody's point of view, maybe not because they're dumb, but it's because they're living a different reality that you cannot relate to. That could be between the rich and the poor, the black and the white, the majority and the minority. So in a way, it's like the yin and yang in Chinese culture and all Asian culture, right? The whiter the white become, the blacker the black become. Meaning that if one side is starting to move to one extreme, to keep things in balance, the other side automatically become more militant and move to the opposite extreme. And that's just natural and instinctual. And that force of pulling keeps things in balance so that the right doesn't dominate the left and the left does not dominate the right. The issue is that when you have a two-party system in the United States and both sides pulling to the left, nothing gets resolved. Everything just become a fight, right? The Democrat has to win or the Republican has to win. When the real issue is how can the polar opposite come together and solve problems, which would require both sides to move to the middle. So you see, what I learned in Asia in the 8 years I was in China and later on in Malaysia is that tolerance, acceptance. Tolerance and acceptance. We hear a lot of these buzzwords in America, but the reality is, where I've actually found that here is here in Asia. Because the cultures in Asia are older, because that it's like an older person, right? And they gain wisdom over time and through trials and tribulations. And that's kind of like what I feel is being in Asia is about. Whereas in the U.S., it's a very young country. It's full of energy. It's full of ideals. Full of dreams. It's like a young person, like a teenager, right? So if you can make an analogy, it's like a teenager tells his grandfather, "Let me tell you how life's supposed to be." And the grandfather, in this case, probably the Asian or the Chinese, is particular because it's a very old culture. He looks back at the teenager telling him, "Let me tell you how life really is." And that's, I guess, my short talk about how to think about things, right? If one advice I can give, you can walk away from this is that before you assume the other side don't know what they're talking about, they're stupid or whatever it is, which annoys and angers you because you can't change their mind. Maybe it's time to start asking questions like, hey, what do I not know? What assumption have I made that's incorrect? And if people start doing that, then everyone will again start moving back to the middle. And hopefully, and that will foster more discussion, more dialogue, more understanding, and who knows, maybe people will come together and finally starting to solve problems instead of yelling at each other and calling each other names and telling them they're wrong and they're idiots and I'm right all the time. That's it. That's my talk for the part 1.